Hi. I have friends, I promise. I'm not by myself, but I am by myself. This is weird. There's nobody in here. But don't worry, our DLS Dallas Stars pregame show is loaded with our analysts and experts. It's not just going to be me talking to you guys, myself, for a half an hour. We could do that, but this will be way more entertaining. So let's start it. We had a trade. We've got an alumni game. We've got Sean. We've got Sam. We might have Luds, but I'm not counting on it. Let's start it right now. DLS Dallas Stars against the Columbus Blue Jackets. It is Sunday. It's Groundhog Day. And boy, do we have two ends of the spectrum in Dallas for a sports afternoon. Hi, everybody. I'm Owen Newkirk for the DLS Dallas Stars pregame show. As on one hand, everybody in hockey land is very excited about the two new additions and a player coming off injured reserve. So a major reinforcement for this afternoon's contest against the Columbus Blue Jackets. On the other side, we literally have a funeral, and I'm sorry, Katya, our producer today, Katya Vialba, who is filling in all week for our producer, John, from Boston Anderson, who is off to New Orleans for Radio Row Super Bowl week, and we're going to have a lot of fun with Katya as well. But, yep, last night we heard the news. I didn't believe it. Katya didn't. Nobody did. I was just watching Squid Game Season 2, Episode 6. Something bizarre happens right at the end of the second to last episode. And then my older son looked at me and goes, "You're not going to believe this. This can't be real." And yeah, Luka traded to the Lakers. Ugh. We're getting into all of that. But first, let me welcome in our crew today. We begin with Sean Shapiro. Sean, do you know where you were when the trade went down? And unfortunately, I'm not talking about Granlund and Cody Ceci.
Well, I know exactly where I was when the Granlund and Cody Ceci trade went down. I was getting ready to go to the sledding hill with the kids. So that was I should have known that was going to happen because Jim Nill has a tendency to make trades that are the least convenient possible time for my family life. I was asleep when Luka Doncic got traded last night. The phone was off. I don't know. What time did the trade actually go through? Owen, I don't know.
It was right before midnight, was it? I believe. Yeah.
So phone was off. I may have been still reading a book, but I was asleep. And then I woke up this morning to, I was staying off. Here's the best part. I found out about the Luka trade because Robert Tiffin wrote about it in his Substack. And that's the reason I found out about it, because I was doing everything in my power to stay off social media this morning since I knew I was not going to be able to watch the Tottenham soccer game live. And so I was just being like, I'm avoiding all news about anything. And I'm scrolling through Substack this morning and I see Robert's story about Luka getting traded. So that's that. So Robert broke the news to me that Luka got traded. So Robert to me is the newsbreaker here.
Well, let's bring in our intrepid beat reporter, Sam Nestler, live at the AAC. And Sam, I promise we're going to talk mostly about Stars, but in order to not ignore the reality that's happening, you witness what's going on outside near the statue of Dirk and the statue of Mike Modano in front of American Airlines Center. What's the scene like out there?
It is wacky. I was following Leah, who lives from Dallas Morning News. She lives right around in this area, so she came by. She said 3 or 4 times just to see what was going on. There was people spray painting and drawing stuff on the statue and on the bottom of the floor, all over the plaza there. And then when I came in, I figured, all right, it's got to be calmed down by now. This is 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon almost. There was a full-on wake/funeral in front of the statue with a full-size coffin with the flags and the jerseys and everything over it. I mean, the guy was the guy that was running it was legitimately talking like he was speaking in a church for a funeral or a wake. It was just bizarre what was going on. People are booing and chanting, and I mean, it felt like a full-on riot almost down there, like a protest for something else. And it's just crazy that can all come from a trade that I don't know basketball very well, but just from following people and hearing stuff, obviously this was massive. I will say Sean getting the news broken by Substack is the most Sean Shapiro thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
It is. And I was watching last night when Bobby and KG and Tim and then Mark later, and then I went to bed because I couldn't take it anymore. They did a great job trying to digest it, but we had a trade in a hockey world that was on the other side of the emotional spectrum because it was exciting. And I think Stars fans should be genuinely excited, not only with the additions, but also getting a player back from injury. So Sam, let's get to your news and notes. You talked to in the media scrum with Pete DeBoer before today's game, just about an hour ago, and there's a lot to break down. So let everybody know what we should expect for today's lineup against Columbus.
Yeah, I'll kind of go in what I would say is the most important order. Number one, we mentioned trades. So both Granlund and Ceci are going to play today. Saw them coming in and out of meetings, and they arrived last night, so they obviously didn't get a morning skate or any practice or anything like that. But what is practice in today's NHL, right? Every trade we've seen lately, it feels like the guys go right out there and play a game, and it's usually a matinee or an early game where they don't get a morning skate in. So just part of being in the NHL. Pete did say that it's easier for guys like this that are both veterans and have been traded. So, it's not nothing crazy new for these guys. We mentioned Granlund with the Finnish connection coming in. That's going to be a very welcoming, easy transition in terms of the room and getting used to everything. So those guys will both play today. It sounds like Granlund will be starting at center, which is something we were wondering. Pete just said we have all kinds of options, but right now we think that him being at center where he's been playing mostly in San Jose is a good way to ease his transition into it. So the bigger news, I think, and I just wanted to get the trade part out of the way first, is Mason Marchment will return and play his first game since, I believe, December 27th or right after the Christmas break. Yep. I think that was the game he got the deflection from Stankoven up in the face and then had the surgeries and the recovery since then. So we know what we get with Mason Marchment coming back, right? This guy, Pete even said it today, he was their best player for almost an entire month before the injury, playing at a crazy elite level, scoring goals almost every game. And not only that, but he's a true power forward in today's NHL. And that he makes this team harder to play against. He makes this team more exciting to play against or to watch play, and he brings a ton to the lineup. So there's all kinds of options. I know that as of the start of this game, we're probably going to see Hintz, Duchesne, and Granlund as the three centers. Brendan Smith and Colin Blackwell will be the healthy scratches, so expecting to see probably Sam Steele dropping onto that fourth line to center that line. But the big thing that Pete said about the transitions and those guys coming out was we had to tell Brendan Smith and Colin Blackwell, this has nothing to do with your play. And that's not a surprise to anyone that's watched this team for the last week or so. Those two guys, and specifically their line with Oscar Beck, have been some of the best players in a lot of these games. And specifically last game, they got the whole thing going with the goal from Beck. It's a tough break for them because they don't deserve to be scratched. But that's what happens when you become a deeper team, right? You add pieces. You have guys, whether you're going to get scratched or some guys we're going to see tonight are not on the power play that were otherwise on the power play with Marchment and maybe Granlund coming in. It's something that the team knows and they understand. They're on a team that's gone to back-to-back Western Conference Finals, right? They need to be better, and this is the sacrifice you have to make. So that's kind of the bigger news of the day. And then in goal, we will see Casey DeSmith, which means, interestingly enough, we'll see them split these 4 games here probably with the back-to-back. I think it's Thursday, Friday, end of the week with LA and San Jose. So we expect to see Casey tonight, and then they'll probably split these 4 games over this next week right before the break.
Now, Sam, one more thing before we let you go, because I want you to be able to have full attention for the warm-up to make sure that the lines we think are right are going to be right. But we saw a great bit from Aaron Portzline, who's a fantastic beat writer covering the Columbus Blue Jackets, a bit of a grisly one regarding James Van Riemsdyk and some teeth and stitches. And you saw it as well. I wanted you to be the one that gets to share with everybody.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if you haven't seen it, go look. I reposted it. Owen reposted it. It just keeps going. So you see the beginning. James Van Riemsdyk took a high stick in the face, had some teeth come out, had some stitches he needed to get. I think he got over 30 stitches in his mouth and facial area. They pulled out basically the remainder of his 4 teeth, and then he went back in the game, as a hockey player does. Later, after the game, they went back and noticed that he still had a piece of a tooth in his lip or in his gum. So they had to go back in, remove some of the stitches that covered that, take the tooth out, stitch it back up, and then I believe there was some root canal work and other things like that following the game. He is expected to play today against Dallas, which
Hockey
is
player.
just unbelievable. But that is next level. That's Chris Tanev level of spitting your tooth out into your hand and going out there for the next shift. I mean, that is unbelievable. You love to see that these guys can push through anything, and that's sacrifice. But that is, I can't believe it. I told Katie about that today, and she was like, no, I can't even. I'm on the phone and I can't even hear what you're saying. It's making me cringe. So tough guy, and excited to see him in the lineup today.
All right, Sam, we'll keep an eye out for the warm-up because we obviously want to know exactly what's going on there with who's going to play with what to start. And I'm going to pepper Sean with line combo questions here. Thanks very much, and I will see you over at Press Row in a little bit.
All right, boys, enjoy the game.
All right, that's Sam Nestler over at the AAC. Now it's just me and Sean, although Luds did say he's around, so if he pops in, don't be surprised. We'll find out. I did send him the link in case he decides. He's juggling some things with the alumni, which we'll get to in a little bit. Sean?
I just want the Luds. Can we get the Luds like live cam? Like I want him to be on his phone, like
just whatever he's doing.
Yes.
There's a lot to break down of what we heard from Sam, but we didn't have you for the emergency pod because you were sledding with your kids yesterday, which was admirable, of course, on a Saturday.
Yes.
What are your 2 cents about this whole trade between the acquisition of Mikael Granlund, Cody, Ceci, how they acquired this trade, what they didn't have to give up, what they did have to give up, and the repercussions of everything that went on yesterday?
Yeah, so I talked to Jim Nill last night, actually, on the phone a little. I know that Jim Nill spoke to the assembled media yesterday as well, yesterday morning, but spoke to Jim yesterday a little bit after in the evening. And the first question one of the first questions I had for him was about the Cody Ceci trade. Of when it came to Ceci, how much is this deal a reflection of something you were looking at already? And how much is this something that was necessitated by the injury to Miro and the following up the injury to Nils Lundqvist? And Jim placed everything a little bit close to the vest here and there at times. But he said, you know what? See, we've been watching Ceci all season. He's a guy we've kind of had circled all season on our list of UFAs, guys we could bring as defensemen if we needed it. And so it's not that Ceci jumped up onto their list because of the injury. But the injury, according to Jim, really combined with the market in the Eastern Conference really made him want to jump and get ahead of things. It was the fact where there are about, like, if you look out east, outside of the Buffalo Sabres, essentially every team is effectively still has a quote-unquote playoff shot right now.
Hey, Sean, jump in real quick, is this sort of like the way you see in the draft, whether it's the NHL or the NFL or the other ones, but when there starts to be a run on a position, all of a sudden they're going on goalies or they're going on wide receivers. Is Jim starting to feel that the run is going to start and he didn't want to be left with the second-hand choices in the defensive market?
100%. And Jim, as you look at it, and Jim kind of mentioned this to me, he doesn't think a lot of the defensemen people think are going to be available are going to actually be available. Like, for example, we're going to see one today, Provorov in Columbus, right? If you read between the lines, like you look at him as a list of a UFA D and everything like that.
We talked about it with Luds on the show last week. I mean, he's a player that I'm kind of interested in, even for a left shot D, because he can play on the right.
Yeah, but like a guy like that is not going to be available for 2 reasons. 1, Columbus is going to be in this as long as possible. And 2, they're probably going to want to re-sign him. There's only so many players that kind of fill those roles. So the Stars were really basically at the spot of, if you don't make a move for a D now with Ceci, you're not going to be able to get a guy. And I know people are going to pick at Ceci's game. And I'm one too, where I look at what he did last year, like, him and I was at the Stanley Cup final last year between Florida and Edmonton, and I watched Ceci get torched in a couple games by Florida. As long as he's not in that role, I think he's a fine addition as a third pairing guy. Like, I think he can come in. Yeah.
Let me ask you about that.
Yeah.
Is this similar, do you think, to the Ilya Lyubushkin acquisition, where at the news of that in the summer, there wasn't a lot of enthusiasm from Stars fans about his free agent signing. But now that they've seen how and where he fits in this group, I think that's gone way up as far as approval ratings. Could that be the same with Cody Ceci if he's not being asked to play 21 minutes a night on a top pairing?
Yeah, possibly. And I definitely think the work of Lyubushkin this season makes the CC trade a little bit more palatable for people who would push against this and be worried about that. Like, hey, well, I was really down on the Lyubushkin deal. And there I see Craig's commenting right there below.
We're laughing here because I texted Luddy and said he's welcome to join if he wants.
Yeah.
Luds, where are you? Where are you at, Luds? Cat wants to know.
So CC to me is, if he is the third pairing guy come playoff time, this is a good trade. If he is in your top 4 come playoff time, I'm a little bit worried. The Granlund one, the deal is, and it's something that I talked to Jim about that one as well. Jim kind of looks at, Jim has a differing view than some outside views for this. I talked to some people around the league about this, and a lot of people kind of broke this trade down as it was Granlund for the first and Ceci for the fourth and slash third. That was kind of what some outside perspective is. That's how talked to some people from some other NHL teams about. They looked at, that's kind of the value how it worked. Where Jim looked at this.
Sorry, you're going to say what I was going to ask you.
Yeah. Jim looked at this more as the first round value was to get both players, and the fourth turning to the third was kind of what he had to do to get the deal done. So Jim has a slightly different look at the acquisition cost compared to what probably the outside market is, and probably what, frankly, the outside market will use. I mean, if you're a Seattle right now and you see Granlund go for a first, and you have a Yanni Gourde who has won Stanley Cups and everything like that. If you're Seattle, and I'm not putting Granlund and Gourde on the same level, but all of a sudden you're using that example as, hey, expiring UFA, a winner. We're asking for a first now, because that's a market that the Stars may have set for some other things. The other key thing, and I know you guys touched on this, and I wrote about it today over at All Dlls today, was the big thing is Jim is very adamant, and I see lots of people. Oh, and you and I were texting about this the other day, and I'll name no names, but you'll see people, when trades come out, they'll be like, I know this team's interested in Liam Bichsel. I wonder if he's involved in the deal.
There are certain ones out there that do not have a lot of information, and that they still tweet.
To be fair, my beer league team is interested in Liam Bichsel on Wednesday nights. We're not getting Liam. We're not getting him. So that's kind of the other thing that was a big thing from Jim, is those young 3 aren't available. And when he's talking about those young 3, he's talking about Bourque, Stankoven, and Bichsel. And to be clear, Wyatt Johnston, this is just a testament to Wyatt Johnston. Wyatt Johnston is not looked at as a young player by Jim Nill anymore. Wyatt Johnston is a young player and is going to need a big contract extension soon. But Wyatt Johnston is not one of those young guys like anymore. It's those 3. And so the Stars, to me, they got better. They got better with this deal. Granlund comes in, should help on the power play. I think Granlund's going to be in a better spot. He was playing like 20-45, 20-36 per game with San Jose.
He's literally playing top-line center minutes for San Jose.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a lot better, kind of moving down a little bit there. I think there'll be an instant fit for him, especially with the Finnish connection as well. That is something that comes into play. And Ceci's a guy who I talked to my pal Shang Peng, who covers the Sharks closely. I talked to Shang last night as well, and we were going back. It was texting back and forth about it. And Shang's kind of direct response, it says Cody Ceci was miscast as a shutdown D in San Jose. He's not a shutdown D. He can't play in that role. But if you can move him down to a 4 through 6 role, and he's playing in that spot, he'll be great, because he's a guy who, if you allow him to focus in that spot, focus in a 14 to 16 minutes a night, play some penalty kill. The thing about Ceci that I heard from a lot of people is his game kind of falters a little bit when he gets above those 20 minutes. So if he's playing 16, 18 minutes, I think it'll turn out a lot better than some people may have said when they saw that.
It's the same thing with Lyubushkin. He knows who he is. He knows exactly here in Dallas what role he's expected to play, and he's flourished because of it.
100%. 100%, yeah.
All right, let's talk about the other big news, which is the Mason Marchment. In fact, I think this is almost equally big as the trade, maybe even more, because of what it means for Matt Duchene, although he's continued to play very well. But Mason Marchment was hurt, as Sam mentioned, against Minnesota right after the Christmas break. He took the deflected puck, the shot that was deflected off the stick of Logan Stankoven. It was a freak accident. He broke his nose. He had other facial fractures, had to have surgery. He's missed 17 games, more than a month, but he's back in the lineup today, Sean. What does it mean to get Mason Marchment back in the lineup with this team?
I think it's actually a great thing, two levels. On a micro level for today's game, I think it takes a ton of pressure off Granlund and Ceci to get going.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think there's a little bit of a, hey, we're getting the band back together. We're getting everyone in. I think there's a lot of times when a new guy comes in, there can be a little bit of the all eyes on you, everything, all of the attention. When you bring multiple players in, it becomes a little bit easier. When you get another guy coming back like Marchment does, I think that actually it makes it even easier for kind of a fit-in success for Ceci and Granlund to kind of come into the start. So that's a micro level. On a bigger term, where things are going on a macro level here, Marchment makes the Stars so much better. He comes back in. He brings that style we saw throughout. He was Stars' best forward for most of the season. And it shows you how deep this team can be. And as you bring guys back in like this, like obviously you're going to see there's some very good depth players scratch today because of where this is going. And so with Marchment, I've kind of doing my own little digging on it. The big thing is, I mean, you can't replicate gameplay, so there will be a little bit of rust. But the big thing, it was never his gameplay. It was never worried about what he get up to speed. It was always the breathing. And so he'll be playing with I'm assuming he'll be playing with the bubble today. I talked to Matt Dumba about it recently. He's been playing with the bubble. I talked to Tyler Mott, who's been playing with the bubble in Detroit. I talked to him a little bit about kind of the adjustment period and stuff like that. I talked to a couple of players about that. And a bunch of them all said it's one of those where the first period of a game with the bubble is the real adjustment period. And it's not even the fogging anymore, because apparently the technology is at a spot where if you're an NHL level player, you're getting a visor / bubble that doesn't really fog. The technology is there. It's more so of you got to get through that first 3 to 4 shifts of the weird breathing. And once you get through that, it becomes normal again. So I'm interested to see Marchment's kind of progression into this game. Does he have a little bit of a slow start? Is it something we're adjusting to that? And I don't think it's a bad thing if it is. I just think it's a reality of you're adjusting to something that is not, you haven't played NHL games like this. So,
all right, you ready for line combo? Sean's favorite thing we do on DLS. Let's show Kat if you would throw up the Stars forwards. This was my best guess based on the information available. And now Sam has posted the warm-up line, so we actually know. And these lines are almost right. Marchment will play with Duchesne and Bourque, and Robertson, Hintz, and Johnson are starting together. It will be Ben, Granlund, and Dadonov on the third line, with Oscar Beck on the left wing. I was guessing on this. Sam Steele will play in the middle. They really like Steele in the middle. And then Logan Stankoven on the fourth line right wing, which means that we will not have Brendan Smith in the lineup, although he's been very good playing as a forward, or Colin Blackwell. Sean, your thoughts about the lines and how they're going to look today?
Yeah, I like seeing, I think that's a good fit for early success for Granlund, because I think Dadonov's a guy who comes in with two levels of things. One, I think he can play with anyone, and that's something that's a strength of Dadonov, being able to move up and down the lineup. I also think there's a bit of a nice ease and element of Dadonov's a guy who's gone through this 2 years ago. 2 years ago now, right, Owen, with the midseason trade for Gurianov?
That's right.
Yeah, so I think there's a good fit there for Granlund when he comes in right away on this. And I'm interested to see Stankoven in that role, and he's the one to me where the most pressure on him to find a fit and find a spot. He's the one who, from a negative of a trade, because you bring guys back in, you guys get healthy, he's the one who moves down in that lineup. He's got to move down there. He's going to be playing with Bach and Steele. He's got to show that he can still contribute. He's got to show
he's not a composer, Sean. It's Oscar Beck.
Yes, you're right. Sorry. It's Oscar Beck. And so so for me, Stankoven drops into that role, and so he has to prove that he can continue to play his game in a little bit of a lesser role. And I know Pete rolls 4 lines, but he's not going to have some of the opportunities he had before. And so he needs to prove that he can do that, because we know Blackwell can do it. We know that they come back in. So give me... The
chat is laughing at you right now, making you do all the line combo talk. And I love it. I'm here for it.
See, I'm fine with this. To me, it's line combos on the... Line combos at the start of it when we're talking about a game and players coming in are fine. I don't have an issue with line combos within a specific game. That's fine. I just lines change all the time. I will go back to my line. Lines are stray cats. Do not name them unless they've been there at least 2 months. That's the rule on lines.
That's fair enough. All right, let's look at the defense, because guess what? We did guess this correctly. It will be indeed Harley, Lyubushkin, Lindell, and Ceci. And Leon Bischel will be playing with Matt Dumba. Now, obviously, Miro Heiskanen slots in there somewhere if and when he comes back. But what do you think about the way this is setting up with Casey DeSmith getting the start? Only his 4th home start of the entire season.
Yeah. On the defense first, I like where Ceci's kind of starting. I think it's, once again, I talked about guys stepping into spots and actually have an opportunity to succeed. And I think him playing with Lindell is a good one, especially since I can imagine we probably will see them play together on the penalty kill. So get the 5-on-5 chemistry going, potentially play on the penalty kill. With DeSmith, I'm happy to see him play. Like we've talked before, I'd like to see him play more games because I'd like to see them.
He was really effective in that role.
Yeah. And so I'd like to see more from there. So D pairs to me make sense. I'm fascinated to see that spot, that final spot where Brendan Smith went and did a really good job of doing the little thing to gain the favor of the coaches. So I do wonder right now what the rope is for Matt Dumba and as things go on here. So
and honestly, with Blackwell and Smith available to play either forward or D, they have some options again, where at a certain point, Dallas was sort of dealing with the bare minimum of lineup options. There's been a great conversation going on in the chat. I don't know if you've been following along, Sean, about cats, whether cat ownership or comparing cats to Matt Dumba or stray cats. And there's some musical things because I teased you about composers. And then Ardell made a Sebastian Bach reference. So it's a nice little 80s hairband in there. We're all over the place. Let's talk briefly about the Blue Jackets because we're running out of time as usual because we can wax poetically for a while. Here is what we expect. The same lineup for the 3rd straight game for Columbus, the forward group, if you would, Kat. This group is missing a couple of key members. Yeah, they're still going on about the Cats.
I know. I'm laughing that we're talking about cats, and it's the day our producer's name becomes Cat. It's just too much. It's just too much.
Put that together. My God,
it's just too much. It's just too much.
Cat and cats, and oh boy, see, it doesn't take long for our diehards to bring producer Cat right into the fold.
I'm not a stray though.
That's true. There's nothing stray about Katya, and I will verify that. Sean, there's a conversation to be had about this group, and it starts with the tragic death of Johnny Gaudreau during right before the preseason and training camp began. And the story of the Blue Jackets, they're missing some big guys with Boone Jenner and Sean Monahan on IR. Yegor Chinnikov is out. Eric Branson is on IR. But what they've been able to do, they are in the first wild card. And part of it's this push they've had. They've won 3 in a row, and they are 10-2-1 in their last 13 games. And they've surged from outside of a playoff spot into the first wild card. And they are a team that believes they can make the playoffs. Yeah,
this team has been, it's been one I've seen them live now twice this season already, and they've been one of the best stories, honestly, in sports. It's for terrible reasons and tragic reasons that they've kind of battled through this and everything like that. But the fact is, this team is going above and beyond. And for me, it's kind of twofold. There's 2 kind of driving factors for it. First, what Zach Werenski's done defensively. I know we're going to roll defensive line charts here in a second, but Zach Werenski has been playing at a level that is kind of, I don't even want to say it's a resurgence to what it was. I think he's been even better than he was before. So Zach Werenski's been playing at that level. And then you've got Kirill Marchenko has just taken his game to a complete another level with Columbus this year. And that to me he's become one of those players that I flip on Columbus games watching now. It's gone from like a curiosity to I watch more Columbus games just for Marchenko. And I think it's kind of taken a lot of the pressure off Fantilli too. Like Fantilli's gotten better, but I think there's so much pressure on Fantilli as a rookie that he never really lived up to it. And I think what Marchenko has done and what Werenski's done and some of the other things around him have allowed other pieces to kind of all come together. And I mean, they're at a spot where this is a team that we thought was going to be a lottery team, potential number 1 team. And they're at a spot where they might be a buyer at the deadline. They might be making a move. And it's a great story how they've endured and moved past a horrible, horrific tragedy. But the play on the ice it's been legitimately entertaining.
The Kirill Marchenko season has been fantastic. The Zach Werenski Norris Trophy caliber season has been amazing. They've all been great. We just don't have enough time to touch on it all. And I want to bring up real quickly because it has to do with our show today. It's the Stars alumni game today. And for the first time, they're doing all Stars alumni. Usually they bring in one of the other NHL teams' alums and they play against them. Well, they actually reached out to over 400 Dallas Stars alums. And here's the lineup. Sean, anything particularly stand out? Because there's some great names on both sides. Craig Ludwig may join us via Sam with some hijinks in the postgame show, but he's not going to be here to break it down like we normally do because he's playing today.
Are those coaches or goalies on the bottom? Because I would love if Tom Gallardi was playing goalie for Team Green.
Those are coaches because unfortunately, Andy Moog is going through cancer treatment, so he won't be on the ice today. Joe Neuendijk isn't skating.
Yeah.
So I think those are the coaches on either side.
Yeah, I mean, this is always a fun event. I know our intrepid beat reporter Sam will be there, so Sam will hopefully Luds gets Sam on the bench with him and gets us a little of on the side. I'm always interested to see if they throw together the full goalie line because I know Marty and Ed Belfour they both prefer to skate out now, and I know Kari Lehtinen had always been in the one that was kind of pulled into that. And I remember one of the when Al Montoya got the job with the Stars. I remember I talked to Marty about it, and Marty said, well, the reason we hired Al was I needed someone else to play goalie in alumni games. And so so I'm interested. I always like kind of that. And I know in the past alumni games, they've mic'd up a couple guys here. So that's a fun event. If you're at the game right now, or even if you're not, like that's a fun event on the calendar every year. So.
Well, Sean and I will be here for the full post-game show. Sam and maybe Luds and a special guest or two from the bench will be hopefully third or fourth segment, depending on when that shenanigan-laced alumni starts. But we will be here to break the game down. Check it out on Victory Plus right now as we're about to start the game. I'm going to scooter over. Yeah, I am. To the AC. Don't run any red lights. Turn signals. We're being safe. The helmet with the blinking lights will be on. But it's an afternoon game, so I might need the sunglasses. So let's get to that. Big thank you to our producer, Kat, who was already fully integrated with our chat. And I can't wait for the post-game show. Oh, by the way, there was a super chat. Talk with me, Hutch Jordan. A little Casey DeSmith and 99 Cup year. Obligatory Carlson super chat. The only problem, Jordan, is Luz isn't here to roll his eyes at your Carlson super chat. So keep hitting us up. But thank you very much. And we will see you right after the game here on DLLS.
We all silly like the mayor.